Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And it is a pleasure and utmost honor to have here with us Mr. Samir Sortur for such an interesting session. We are here for about an hour and a half, and I hope that all members of the audience, will make the most out of this time. To get this man is very difficult, let me tell you this. The organizers of this event have tried to set up a meeting for so long, and it is with a great pleasure that I welcome you here, Mr. Samir Sotur. This session is under the TAMID Group initiative. Now, the TAMID Group is where business-minded students become the next generation of Israel-engaged leaders. Now, at SB Jain, our TAMID chapter aims to cultivate those business leaders. But we don't want to train them like robots. We want them to become leaders through experiential learning, grooming consultants, entrepreneurs, and investment fund managers. The TAMID initiative has been made by students and for students. So let's keep this going. Now, instead of introducing you, Mr. Samir Sulter, why don't you draw yourself an auto portrait here in the best possible way?
Yeah, thank you, Akhilesh, and thank you for the entire team at TAMID at SP Jain. Really, when I learned about TAMID, it's a fantastic initiative on how a country can expand its ecosystem to offshore borders and still get an ecosystem built for themselves with the use of the youth. So thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm always available for the students, just on a quick note. So because I love working with the youth, that's my passion. To get started quickly, in fact, I have been in the UAE for last 17 years, moving between different countries, having experienced the rise and fall of economies, both at a macroeconomic level as well as at the micro level. Gone through the financial crisis of 2008 and then the oil crisis and all of the changes happening in the environment, till now where we are, where we are suddenly hit by an unknown, I wouldn't call it a pandemic, but an endemic, which kind of help you really identify opportunities out of certain tragic events which are which are being affected in the world. So I started my career as a commerce student, as a finance student, but I had love for technology, and that moved my career with technology organizations. And when I 2004 I landed up in this region in Bahrain. From 2004 till 2010-11, I primarily focused on helping petrochemical companies derive data out of their machines, which really use legacy systems. And from 2011 till almost 2014, I got involved in the entrepreneurship wave in the UAE, a very interesting time for all of us who have been here in that time. And that gave my career a good sprint to actually look at entrepreneurship as a career seriously, build on my own. Also got an opportunity to kind of co-work and design a corporate innovation accelerator for DP World. That really set me thinking on helping founders, working with founders very closely to let them develop their ideas into sustainable and profitable businesses. And with that intention, I set up Square Circle Global in 2014, in September 2014. And then just during the pandemic, just before, I would say, February, March timeframe, it's almost a year now, the idea of Founder Institute happened. and it was just an idea discussing with some ecosystem leaders in the UAE. And I couldn't be more grateful to the people who have supported this initiative to make it a reality. And we're in our second cohort of Founder Institute with top-notch founders, both male and female in terms of diversity. I wear multiple hats. I run Founder Institute. I run Square Circle Global, which is our full-time data science and decision science business. We work with companies in petrochemical, pharmaceutical, government, transportation, aviation, whole lot of industries. But my real passion is helping entrepreneurs succeed. So that's why I'm here. Thanks, Akhilesh. I hope that's short and crisp.
That is indeed very crisp, and I'm very grateful to be able to interact with you here, and I'm sure all the members of the audience are as grateful as I am here. Now, being someone who has founded Square Circle Global, someone who has helped to found the Founder Institute and the JCC. Now, for everyone that doesn't know about Founder Institute, so it's an American business incubator and entrepreneur training and startup launch program. It was founded in Palo Alto in California, 2009. Now, it is based in Silicon Valley. So, to all my entrepreneur members of the audience here, or those who want to have a startup in the future, open your ears here. It's a Silicon Valley based company. Now, the Founder Institute maintains chapters in over 180 cities and more than 65 different nations across the globe, which highlights the importance of the whole startup ecosystem, right? Now, another question that I have for you is being in this startup ecosystem at the very core of it, right? You're part of Square Circle Global, you're a consultant yourself, you help set up the Founder Institute. Now, what are the most exciting, you said crisp, so what are the most crispy projects that you worked on before?
So one of the projects which is really near to my heart, which had a solid impact, is working with the youth of the universities for co-delivering a program with Cisco. And the program from 2015 to 2020, I was actively involved in delivering this, co-delivering this program for Cisco. And the program is very, very interesting in terms of how Cisco positions CSR. It's called Cisco Global Problem Solver Challenge. Okay. And it aims to actually work on the impact which student entrepreneurs are creating, recognize them, and bring them to the forefront and award them. So across this 4 or 5 year journey of working with Cisco's Global Problem Solver Challenge, I was able to work with two very interesting projects. And one, I would like to mention these two projects, though I was kind of literally had oversight on these projects, but I'm closely interacting with these projects since then. So one is the organization or the startup which won one of the main prizes in this competition was a company incubated out of IIT Bombay. And IIT Bombay is one of the largest, and most innovative tech incubators in India, a top technology institute. And the project was about helping giving care to rural women. And the project is titled Care Mother. And Care Mother, basically, rural women in India's rural places face difficulty in actually accessing healthcare, as well as the most important time during their pregnancies, they do not have resources to even access the nearest clinics, right? So Care Mother provides them a device to actually do their own self fetus testing,
Wow.
which is amazing. And it got funded by Google Ventures as well. So, very, very interesting, impactful project. The second project which I would like to mention is solar-based irrigation in a state in India called Bihar,
Mhm.
and this was developed. The startup is called Urja Solutions, and
Okay.
literally in very very remote locations. And as you guys being Israeli students, a lot of the audience being students from Israel, I think ag tech or agri tech is on the top of the agenda for a lot of Israelis. uh, this technology provides solar-based irrigation control systems using a normal candy-based mobile phone. A normal phone can actually switch on, switch off your meters and things like that. And it was completely solar-based. And so these were a couple of interesting under the Cisco Global Problem Solver Challenge. These were a couple of projects I really felt interesting and very aligned to work with. Um, and there are many actually to describe, but I would be very, very interested to work on projects which are very, very impactful and can create a long-term, I would say, involvement of all the stakeholders, both from government and private, because most of the projects are going now into a public-private partnership model. And
Right.
hence, I think as the world becomes one, or we're calling the flat world, right? You will see a lot of these startups working with governments, working with private companies, and coming up with one solution to save humanity.
That's so beautifully put. So beautifully put. Startups and governments coming together to save humanity. That will be a dream come true, I think, for yourself and for many others out there. Now, I'll do my research on the Cisco Solve a Global Challenge. It's been great to hear about those crispy ideas and concepts, and truly the fetus testing. I think everyone here is mind blown right now. I don't think it's something that people would actually imagine building. Now, many of us here, members of the audience and students under the Tamit Club initiative, we want to become entrepreneurs. That's a fact. Now, what are the factors, right, in creating and establishing a solid and sustainable startup ecosystem so that our startups in the future can flourish and be prosperous?
So, interesting question. A startup ecosystem has various components, and
Right.
I follow a lot of startup commons global. Okay, this is a very vital resource when it comes to an open startup ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they define a startup ecosystem, they call it an ecosystem OS, an ecosystem operating system. Okay, like you have a Mac OS and a Windows
Yeah,
OS, right? They call it as
for
an
sure.
operating system. And there are different stakeholders in an operating system, in a startup ecosystem, right? The most important players of these ecosystem are, I would say, the people, the founders, or the startups themselves. Whoever participates at the early level
Mm-hmm.
and want to really seek support from, be it government, be it private, be it integrated innovation. Like I have done a couple of projects which we established between the US and the UAE. We established an integrated innovation institute wherein this corporate based out of UAE wanted to come out with commercial products and services, was working very closely with a with a California university to kind of commercialize, build the product with 40 PhDs, and then commercialize these products across the world based on certain ideation technologies. So we worked on that very closely. So literally, it starts with the people participating in it, the startups or the students or whoever are participating,
Right.
they define the objectives uh, of whether we need government access. For example, some of the social enterprise projects need government grants, right?
Definitely.
Right.
Yes.
So, how do I access government grants? Are there any programs for us locally to access government grants? For example, Expo 2020 gives out a lot of government grants for projects which are making impact as well as social impact. So, how do we access, how do we work with Expo 2020?
Right.
So government is one very important stakeholder. He's enabler and definer of policies. Okay, but literally the startups then kind of help them define those policies or even change some of those policies. Second is private partnerships. Okay,
Okay.
when you go to private, there is a lot of co-creation and co-innovation happening these days, wherein a
True.
startup is going to a private organization, they really like the solution, and they get embedded in different ways in terms of to co-innovate a solution for the corporation. So I would
Hmm.
say large corporations, fortune companies are using this model to kind of establish themselves as the most innovation. They're also establishing innovation labs with the help of startups, and they also have their own accelerator programs,
Right.
right?
Right.
So this is the second pillar. The third pillar is the funding,
Right.
and literally in the funding regime also there are a different line of I would say funding institutes which can help depending on the stage of your business. If you are an early stage startup, like we at Founder Institute, we work with early stage startups which are pre-seed and pre-revenue. They're
Hmm.
still wanting to get traction from the market and so forth. So for them, friends and family, structuring friends and family round, and then taking them to angels, moving to the venture capital, okay, which specifically work with pre-seed, pre-revenue startups. There are VCs specialized in this segment, and at Founder Institute, we're also building our VC lab framework to kind of have more investors come in to actually enable and invest in pre-seed startups. And the fourth aspect is actually the top venture capitalists themselves who look at Series A and above deals, right? And then comes private equity, which is literally the M&A type of decisions or the IPO type of decisions. And now the recent model, which is evolved, is SPAC, which is special purpose acquisition vehicles
Okay.
to either do an IPO or to exit. So the government, the private institutions, fortune companies who want to co-innovate with startups,
Hmm.
the funding institutions. The fourth is the universities and the university frameworks. Now Dubai and the UAE has come out with a very exciting value proposition that the universities can have accelerators, incubators within their own premises, and they can actually
Oh,
license the companies like the Stanford and the MIT.
wow, that's great news.
This has been the policy has been out there, and I think it is just they are identifying the universities who can implement these policies implement these incubators, accelerators within the universities, get a license, and then really have those companies spin out of their institutes, which is at a very early stage at the student life level.
I think that's
So this
excellent.
makes the ecosystem OS, I would say, and I would say the the startup commons global, the framework is so solid that it gives you every aspect of participation of a stakeholder. I mentioned four stakeholders, there are many more, but these
Right.
are primary pillars. But how do you structure yourself to play around with these stakeholders? So that's a strategy each participant in the ecosystem has to carve out. What objective am I participating in this ecosystem OS
Right.
is what has to come out. So that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, But happy to answer any other questions on the
Oh,
startup ecosystem as well.
trust me, there's so many. I think the way you put the startup ecosystem and explained it in the form of an OS, in the form of pillars, I think that's one of the best explanation we can truly get for what is a startup ecosystem. Now, let's talk about that third pillar and the one that's, I think, the most difficult to get for startups, that's funding, which is the third pillar. Now, when when it comes to funding, many people they don't want to invest in startups. They would rather go and buy shares of the more established companies, which is totally normal because human beings we're risk averse. We don't want to risk our money, our savings. Now, is it wise for people to invest in startups? That's number one. Uh, is it wiser now to invest in the more stable and older, more established organizations? I think if members of the audience here get the answer to this question, we might have some people who provide the savings as funding for probably my next startup. We never know.
Uh, I think I mentioned to you different stages of the ecosystem funding OS, right?
Right.
So there are stages, which is the pre-seed pre-revenue stage, right? So when you are a startup at that pre-seed pre-revenue, the most important metric for you is actually your user traction.
Okay.
And if you have an MVP rolled out, what happens is then you are in a much better position to get the people, the funders can literally look at your traction and start funding your startup.
Hmm.
If you are
True.
in a very early product building or a MVP building stage, if you've just started um, building your MVP and you want somebody to fund it, the easiest thing to do is either bootstrapping, okay, that you put your own investment to because you believe that this product or service is going to become a success.
Hmm.
The second is actually friends, family, and fools, okay,
Okay.
and it's called, yeah, FFF. And typically friends and family are your trust network most of the time, that whatever this person is doing, I can trust and I can invest a part of or allocate a part of my saving or part of some funds to help this person get off the ground, right?
Hmm. True.
And the fools are truly believers in certain ideas which are trending, right? Like, for example, we have so many trending stuff going on right now that they think that this founder is building something which is trending, I'll make money quickly, and they invest at a very early stage. Also, funding requires a lot of trust building, which most of the founders miss. Funding is not easy. You have to
It's
build a relationship over a period of time, over a period of 6 to 12 months, to get to the funding cycle with a particular, even an angel investor, or because UAE as a startup ecosystem has come a long way in the last 10-11 years, but still does not have the equal maturity of the Israeli or the US startup ecosystem, because they're very matured ecosystems where people know the founders, know the capabilities, and can take easy decisions to invest quickly over less than a week, right?
hmm
And they can cut the check. So this why this happens is because those ecosystems have proven based on trust model. So if you
okay.
are a founder looking to access investment, first of all, you need to be very clear on how much money do I need, for how many months do I need that money. Okay, if you need
Yeah.
that money for 12 to 18 months. The third question is, how will I deploy that money? You should have a clear plan on how you plan to deploying that money. And then how do you return back to your investors?
That's important.
Right? Yeah, because raising money is the easiest thing, I would say, in today's world, because there are very many investors and chasing very little deals. The number of deals are less, while as the number of investors are more, right?
Right.
And more and exponential and growing. And you will see a lot of, like, for example, the biggest Israeli crowdfunding platform, Our Crowd, launched in UAE last year, right?
Oh,
And the reason is literally because of the Abraham Accord. They saw an opportunity that this entire Middle East, North Africa is a very growing ecosystem, and we really need to bring this platform to the growing ecosystem. So there are different ways. Once you get traction, crowdfunding is another way where you have a little bit extra traction, where you can raise money. But these 4 points are critical. First of all, have you built enough traction? How much money do you need? How will you deploy, and how will you return?
right. Thank you so much for this precious answer. I think my perspective has changed about funding now. So we have a question from the audience, but we will queue it. It's from Neha. Great question, but I think let's get into the conversation a bit more and later we'll tease this question.
Sure.
Now, as like many students from SPJ and from all over the world and the members of the audience who wish to become entrepreneurs, if you had to choose three skills for an entrepreneur to have, what would these three skills be?
Okay. Fantastic. So I will actually share my own experience, based on and maybe I don't have all the three skills, but typically I would share one of the skills which are extremely important to start with
Okay.
is initiative, lead. First of all, any opportunity you get, look optimistically at that opportunity and take the lead to execute that opportunity without thinking the outcome. A lot of founders miss the bus because they think of the outcome too much. My belief was from the beginning, and some of the projects I've done strengthened my belief, is your input, your direct input in any activity is equal to your output. Okay. And while you are free to define your goals and outcomes, that's fine, but don't necessarily focus on outcomes. Focus on inputs, on how much time you're giving for that initiative or project. So
Right.
literally allocate a good amount of time. If you're working on a startup, allocate a clear amount of time for working on the startup itself out of your time, so that you can prioritize and take initiative, right?
Right.
Second is fear of failure.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And this is common, like everybody says, fail fast, FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes.
I missed the bus, timing was not right. And this is more insecurity for a founder, that or any student or entrepreneur, and this also applies when you're giving your exams as a student and things like that, that you fear uh, of certain things. Again, it is outcome based, but literally that fears drives your motivation down. So self belief, self motivation, fear of loss or losing out, remove completely from your outlook,
Mhm.
and in fact focus on literally getting reading positive books, reading and listening to very interesting podcasts. We have a new mechanism, which is a very interesting app called Clubhouse, which has some fantastic
Yes.
conversations going on, right? Participate in groups to kind of get your right mental state. So what the point I was coming to is, when you want to really experiment a pretty cool idea which you think can make a difference to the world, have a right mental state all the time. And the third most important skill is honesty and also resilience. I think a lot of founders are not honest to themselves.
Oh,
Okay, they
why?
get carried away. they get carried away by whatever the market says. Somebody says some I was reading a report last night, shared by one of my friends in Finland who works at a very strategic university. And this friend shared the report, and the entire statistics did not have Middle East as a region as a comparison. And I was wondering, like as a Middle East region, we are 43 countries, right? So don't
Mhm.
we exist in the in this whole wide world? And this top four consulting company, I really want to go and question this company at some point, saying, what is the basis of this report? Why are you saying that this report is genuine, and you produce this report without considering a region which is which has emerging economies to its forte, which has the highest GDP today, right?
Definitely, yes.
And UAE has the top number one passport in the world, accepted by
Yes.
most of the countries in the world. So why we are left out? And so the point was, you know, if you rely on certain data, be sure to validate that data. Be very very honest about utilizing that data to your benefit. And this is what most of the founders miss out, that they do not understand. First of all, how can I trust, rely on that data? How can I honestly take opinion of others to build my total addressable market, or the hypothesis model for my startup, for my business model, right?
Hmm.
And so this external data validation becomes most important. Resilience is very common. If you do any projects, even in your university, you have to be resilient. uh,
Yes.
and this should be an embedded quality in each and every person. I think you can develop it, but I think generally most of us are very very resilient to most of the situations happening around the world, and we've come with difficult situations that's around us, all of us.
Definitely,
Not
yes.
every situation is favorable. So I think, have your say, be honest to yourself, and believe in yourself.
Right. So if I get it right, initiative, we have the right mental state, so be optimistic. Third one, honesty and resilience. So
And
I
to
hope that
yourself, honesty to yourself, and belief in yourself.
right. So I hope everyone has their pen and paper out, and I've noted this down. I have some skills that I want to build on, and I will. And this should be the case with everyone watching us right now. So we've got another question, Mr. Samir, but I will cue it again. This question is from Manthan. So don't worry, we're not disregarding your question. We're simply queuing it for the end of the session. Now, what is your advice for the young and fresh graduates? So I'm graduating in about 25 days now. But what are the advice that you could give me if I want to immerse myself in the startup world? Now, obviously, young graduates, we're what, 20, 21, 22. That's the classic age. We do not have financial resilience that someone who's 30 or 40 would have,
Hmm.
because obviously we have not been in our first job yet, we have not built good savings. But times are changing, and gradually, even teenagers are becoming more resilient. But what is your advice for young and fresh graduates who want to get themselves in the startup world?
So, first of all, startup does not require funding. You can quote me on this anywhere.
Will definitely do.
Very, very wrong analogy to most of the people around the world, that to build everything or anything, I require money.
That's a whole different outlook on this thing.
Yeah,
Please go
yeah.
on.
And I really want to stress this to the core, because of this belief, every entrepreneur who approaches me asks me for money, while as literally they are not clear on what they are building, for how they are going to build, How much will it require? Again, I'm kind of repeating some of the points from the funding discussion. And how will uh, how will they really make money? See, if you have a clear plan to make money out of your startup idea, and you share that money making idea with any individual or angel investor, that person should not hesitate to invest in you in some format. Now that person can invest in you as a mentor, that person can invest in you as directly as a investor, or a friend or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a student, right, you're graduating, have you defined for yourself first that I am really clear that I do not want to take a corporate job?
Right.
One, is it clear in your mind that, and by the way, why I am stressing this, I have met many students, and the first question is the cushy question is, I want to take up a job in a multinational company and support my family. But there are
Yeah.
also very deserving students who have said, look, job is not, and they have rejected jobs with fortune companies. I want to make an impact in this world, and for that, whatever is required to be done from the beginning of my career, I will do it. So in your mind of two antennas, let's take the router antennas, right?
Okay.
In these router antennas which pop up every morning when you wake up, okay, which antenna is kind of showing more strength in your mind? Is it the job antenna that I should take up a job, or is it the startup mindset which requires a different level of thinking, different approach, and a complete new way of working, to achieve, to become a startup? And and again, uh, your family may or may not support you, okay?
Right.
If you have seen the most famous YouTubers today, they are making so much money and they are giving out so much money in charity, it's unbelievable.
It is. It
Okay.
is.
So first of all, if you want to start up, can you create your own community? Can you influence that community? And can that community help you build on your goal? Is what you have to start thinking loudly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
so literally, as I said again, that your input is equal to your output. If you follow the mechanics of building something unique for the world, money will follow, not the other way around. In the
Yes.
other scenario, you are more following money, which will leave your goal apart for the next 15-20 years. So you will just be stuck in your corporate job. During my time, we did not have this. There were only businesses which you would create. We did not have digital tools which to enable us to create startups in a
Mm-hmm.
very short time, in a week.
Right.
Today you can go live on YouTube and you can become a creator on YouTube. In 1 month, you have money coming in your bank because you have suddenly you have so many million views,
Right.
right? So there are different models which have emerged. And do you understand these models? If you understand these models, have you started creating something? Have you started building something already during university? Okay. And for that, have you started seeking external support? So there is a way. I think there is a process. It starts with your mindset, and then it will automatically mature for you to become a startup. And when you become a startup, you're already financially independent. You will not need other people's money,
Right. That's the dream for everyone, I guess.
and you can fulfill your dream.
Hopefully, with your support, I think many youngsters will definitely benefit and live their dream. And I hope that tomorrow when I wake up, my corporate antenna dies out and my entrepreneurial one lives on and becomes really resilient. Now, under the Tamid Group initiative, some of us are about to get involved in pro bono consulting. Now, we've seen, with COVID-19 getting in this world and really affecting every single person on earth, we've seen many solopreneurs, many startups being set up with one idea to make an impact. And this was a good time to choose to make an impact. Yet the chances of their survival are really slim, and some of them have actually closed doors. Now, how do you think that young consultants who work on pro bono basis can actually help businesses grow and sustain?
So some of the startups which, just before COVID started,
Mm.
who were in the touchless space. What I mean is touchless or contactless space.
Right, right, right.
Okay, be it a fintech, be it a e-commerce, who had already innovated a product or service. Personally, I have seen their journeys, I've monitored their growth. They have grown exponentially from a few 100,000 users to over 10, 15 million users, especially during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a, I would say, as a pro bono consultant yourself, look at these opportunities around you, right?
Countless, countless.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the companies which have actually grown during COVID and
Mm-hmm.
work with them to actually help them scale further. You are connected to different ecosystems. You have chapters, Tamed has chapters across the world. You can open up so much opportunity for the startup if it's just a UAE based startup, for example, right? With
Mm-hmm.
your influence and your network and your expertise in certain areas, say, for example, you pick an area, digital marketing, or you pick business development, or you pick strategy, depending on where your expertise lies. Okay, once you pick that idea, then you start making a difference in creating something unique for that startup which has actually grown. When the other way to qualify or work with a solopreneur or on a pro bono basis is literally, there are so many programs coming on campus, right, for
Mm-hmm.
pro bono consulting and so forth, right?
Right.
Internships, pro bono consulting. I did few presentations across different universities during COVID and now I keep doing. And I get a lot of LinkedIn invitations, but I hardly get students asking me, can we volunteer for Founder Institute? How can we help you to make this program a success? Or can we use our expertise to help you in some way?
Right.
Uh, People
Very
just
rare.
don't leverage the network rightly. And I think this is one of the things students should learn when they connect with somebody over social media or otherwise
Right.
on a meeting like this. I think have your ask very clear and then start working on that ask. Uh, they will definitely, people whom you have asked and you are very persistent to continue asking them, they will definitely work with you. So there are opportunities on founders you believe in. There are opportunities in the contactless e-commerce. There are many opportunities. So initially you can say, I want to work for 3 to 6 months on a pro bono, but definitely I would like to play a much bigger role because I graduate from then. Okay. And so you define your own career path with them,
Definitely.
right? You define what you want out of them. So yeah.
I think your inbox is going to be filled tonight with requests. Can I help you? Can I do
I'm
something? I
okay
want to
with that.
contribute.
I love it,
So,
but if you have to have a specific say and ask, like say,
right.
Tell me, how can you help me? I'll ask the simple question. Tell me exactly how can you help me?
Well, members of the audience, members of the Tamil group, you have hours and hours now. Draft your statement, prepare for that quick, fiery question and fierce one that you'll have to answer to help Mr. Sotur in his endeavors. Now, we've talked about technology, we've talked about consulting. Do you think that the new technologies will make consulting redundant? Will a machine ever replace a consultant?
So, this is normally defined under the future of work, where the future of work is heading. And
Right.
the survey yesterday I was mentioning, which came into my WhatsApp by a friend, was exactly talking about the future of work, which did not have the Middle East mentioned, right?
Okay.
And the future of work, according to me, is very distributed, is going to be distributed,
Okay.
and will remain distributed for a long period of time, over a decade more,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
And the reason for that is COVID suddenly have changed business models of a lot of companies around to help focus on efficiencies of running a business. Now, some of the
Right.
redundancies of running a business were high manpower costs, high
Mm-hmm.
real estate costs, okay, and high accommodation or employee maintenance costs,
Right.
right? And so this hybrid models have and will completely remove all these redundancies. Startups will become more agile. They'll get access to the top talent worldwide, and then I would say automation will bring in efficiencies of work, but the intellectual part of work will still have to be done. The decision making part of work has to still to be done by humans.
Right.
The personal interaction between humans to co-innovate and co-create new products and new services for the world has still to be done in person, or over these digital channels, but it still needs human interaction. It cannot solve, but the routine tasks, for example, the call center tasks, the
Right. Right.
loan application tasks, the loan processing tasks, the insurance tasks, the bill payment tasks. 95% of the UAE government services have been automated, and all of the services are going paperless and contactless. So when all of this happens, literally, I'll tell you a very interesting example. I went to update my Emirates ID the other day in the bank,
Okay.
and I went to the bank after almost 2.5 years, and
Wow.
it took me 2 hours to just update my Emirates ID, and I was cool because literally I had this nostalgia of not visiting a physical bank to do any task for last 2.5 years, and I wanted to really enjoy that experience of visiting a bank.
And here, us youngsters, we don't even want to go to the bank. We want
Exactly.
everything online.
Exactly. And similarly, for example, there are so much efficiencies built even in consulting models today that literally automation can replace all of these redundant tasks, right, which are
Right.
very routine. But
So,
literally, when it some of the processes are being designed using a concept called human centered design. If you
right.
go to the latest websites, they are actually using certain concepts from human centric design, and they are designing their websites because people know exactly what to click, where to click. They mind their minds are being mapped according to neuroscience, and according to the flow of their mind, those portals or those intuitive experiences are being designed, right?
Right.
So literally, when this is very high-end consulting work to design experiences using neuroscience, right?
Exactly.
So here, automation cannot help. Here, a person who understands human psychology
Right.
has to sit with another human, ideate, brainstorm, uh, and then come up with a solution to solve that experience problem.
Yes,
One
definitely.
of the things I'm very passionate about is a technology called biomimicry. It's an innovation tool. It's not a technology yet, but biomimicry is actually learning from nature and embedded those learnings into tech.
Wow.
Okay,
Interesting.
most of the large organizations, you take the HPs or the IBMs and Google,
Mm-hmm.
they use their innovation framework and they're using more of these innovation tools to actually help build a sustainable world, because literally everything belongs to the nature, correct?
Correct.
Right? This is why Amazon built their data center right in the deep of the ocean, where
Mm-hmm.
heat dissipation and one data center in the depth of the Arctic, where all of the planet can be saved by this heat dissipation and other climate changes and things like that. So literally, they're looking at nature, they're learning from nature, and they're implementing that in their technology. So to answer that swiftly, where it requires high amount of human intelligence to operate and work, I would say human life is upgraded to version 2.0. So
Okay.
you have to upgrade yourselves to that 2.0, or in again these consulting organizations called the Great Reset.
Time to press the button, right?
Time to press the button. So adapt yourself according to the latest skills out there, and then ensure that you're highly skilled to match those skills. And then, not automation, not anything, you will be defensible against most of the technologies being developed out there, because literally your learning curves are faster than the industry.
True. So now let's move on to last question from my side, and then let's take a couple of the audience questions. But they are kind of a rapid fire question. So,
Sure.
what do you think of cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, smart contracts, and NFTs?
Absolutely. So I have been involved in the crypto blockchain space since 2014 personally. December 2014, ideally, when Dubai had their first blockchain conference, Dubai Blockchain Conference. So since
Right.
that time, I had been personally involved in the and as at the start of the presentation, I had mentioned about the up and downs, the economic cycles of certain commodities, the both the influential factors, the micro and the macro influential factors. Similarly, the Bitcoin, the crypto, has gone its own cyclical nature. And because it's a digital currency, I'm talking about Bitcoin right now, and then
Right,
I'll,
right.
I'll come to the technology, because we all started with Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin. Many people started mining Bitcoin first because they saw a huge opportunity. If they mined Bitcoin, they could suddenly sit on heaps of cash in the short term. And also a lot of miners lost their machines because the heat generated could not be really could not save their machines um, uh, from crashing and things like that. So a lot of infrastructure was lost as well. But
Right.
since the early evolution of 2011, 2012 to where it is as a digital currency, It has taken a huge step. And unlike uh, any other government backed currency, this is a free will ecosystem. Again, this is an ecosystem of people contributing and determining the value by free will, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
more you keep buying, the more value it starts generating. But there are certain people again in the value chain who started selling in bulk because the value became large, or it received a very high valuation. And suddenly you start, typically like a stock market scenario, typically again you start liquidating your assets or digital currencies, and then the value starts coming down. So similar economic cycles have happened. And I personally think there is no stable point for this. Unless it is regulated, it cannot achieve stability. It will be a floating digital currency. Bitcoin will remain a floating. There are other currencies like Ethereum and others, the Doge coins and others, who will kind of be also attaining certain amount of near Bitcoin values, but Bitcoin will still remain the most
Okay.
impacted digital currency in the world, right? In terms of infrastructure, how this has emerged and what it has given, especially to talk about security. One of the applications of the blockchain infrastructure was Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exchange of value. While the blockchain infrastructure itself has been used for multitude of applications. And I'm a very frequent user of something called as Blockstack. And in Blockstack ecosystem, if you enter, you will see right from email to file exchange systems to cybersecurity, you will have a multitude of applications built on crypto and blockchain infrastructure, having their own ecosystems. So literally,
Right.
when it comes to cryptographic security, the blockchain infrastructure plays a bigger role in maintaining security of assets. One, because it is not owned by one. It is it's a process where the approval moves between cycles of people.
Right.
Then the second of all is literally, one, it is not centrally managed and controlled. Developers can build applications which can really change the world, and developers have done that right from wallets is a fantastic way to maintain security compared to the wallets which are currently built by the banks and others.
Right.
Startups have built cryptographic debit and credit cards as well. Revolut in the UK is a fantastic example of how,
Yes.
is being utilized. And there are completely digital open banking systems which are being now powered by this infrastructure. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so digital bank, complete digital banks. There is no physical infrastructure using blockchain as a technology there, and open banking as a platform. You can tomorrow anybody would can open a digital bank. Obviously, you have to have your credentials, but literally, it could be as easy as starting a startup, having a solid business model for the digital bank, a unique differentiator. The blockchain infrastructure or the ecosystem has enabled you to create this.
Right.
Digital identity verification is another application which is very close to my heart, because literally when you call the call center, the only identification they do is via your mobile number, or that's the authentication generally used. But using cryptographic assets, including biometric hashes, you can literally take that to the next level by really authorizing you, taking you through a multiple level of transactions using only one biometric hash from your finger. But there's a backend authentication. It is validating so many parameters in the backend, and anonymously kind of creating that whole ecosystem of approval. That within seconds, that particular automated call center has authorized you as a banking customer, and also enrolled you into a new product, or
Right.
answered your question which you are always wanting to get a response to very quickly within few seconds. So those kind of infrastructures are being developed. uh, in terms of NFTs. Okay, so NFT definition is very recent, and again the origination is value. Like I would say it's a small value of data coming up from the Bitcoin blockchain infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
On that, what you can develop, okay, if it is a token which you have developed for, if you're a frequent flyer, for example, and flying on an airline, and if you have, as an airline, if you have developed those tokens, okay, and we had developed this proposal for a very leading airline, a big leading airline. um, these tokens can actually be utilized in a micro format to exchange for either cash or either products or services. You can step into a Costa, have the Bitcoin wallet with NFT tokens in it, exchange for a simple cup of cafe latte or a cappuccino, right?
Right.
The tokenization in the NFT helps you to break into micro tokens and own that particular asset. If you have
Mm-hmm.
heard the story recently that a digital painting, which was a GIF, was sold for $69 million.
Yes. Crazy.
Right, it's crazy, right? So see, if you determine the business model on how these NFTs are developing, any data point or any asset out there, any digital asset out there, if you associate that digital asset with a value using the crypto infrastructure, and you can actually trade that for a value, suddenly and by the way, they also now have NFT trading bourses, you can actually trade your NFTs
Right.
on bourses, and they're coming up with their own bourses, by the way. and
Mm-hmm.
and they have rankings for their NFTs, which is amazing, like stock market, right?
Right.
For their tokens. So it's going well so far. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be regulation, and countries will also try to bring in. They will not stop the innovation. They will still allow companies to innovate using the public infrastructure, but
Mm.
also there will be a lot more innovation happening in private infrastructure. For example, a private infrastructure might also mean a government rolling out a digital currency for an entire country,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right.
public, which is the universe, or it could also become the multiverse. For example, a Virgin Galactic can sell a ticket, or a Elon Musk, SpaceX can sell you a ticket to go to Mars using your crypto tokens, your NFTs, right?
Right. I mean, he's selling cars using
Selling
Bitcoin now.
cars now using Bitcoin, and he's also accumulated a $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. So these things are happening. right?
Right.
But when countries start to really closely monitor the transactions, because obviously they want to bring and secure the infrastructure and bring them into the tax net. That's also one of the things, because if there is a physical currency which is the fiat currency which is being printed, and there are economies relying on that fiat currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if there is an anonymous currency which is really overtaking the fiat currency, there has to be certain concern by the governments, right?
Definitely.
And also look, in the I would say, they call it the dark web, and in the dark web there is so much activity happening
Yes, using
with
cryptocurrencies.
this transactions, and so much amount of information is being accessed without exposure to the wide web, or the world wide web. Okay. Is phenomenal. They're just saying more than 80% of the real transactions of crypto are happening on the dark web,
Yes.
right?
I
And
read
so,
an article, right? Fun fact, a week
yeah,
ago, they said that only 4.5% of the cryptocurrency transactions happen in all legal, only in all legality, but the remaining 95.6% happen on the dark web. Now imagine the volume of transaction on the dark web.
absolutely, absolutely. And so in order to kind of closely monitor, see, even the government has limitation on tools, so they are also developing cyber secure tools using the top blockchain developers,
Right.
okay, to patrol the dark web, to ensure that certain information which is not legal is not being leaked out on the dark web and things like that. So just to kind of the technology is disruptive. Crypto, there are a multitude of applications on the technology, right? How you
Hmm.
utilize it and ethically build upon that technology is literally going to make a difference. So I think if you're a one of our startup in cohort one built a fantastic startup. I really like that startup. Today the world is going into a gig economy, right? The world, we call it as a gig economy. Everybody is
Yes,
doing projects remotely. Digital nomad is on the rise. I'm a part of many digital nomad groups because I really love to see experiences, and at some point also now after COVID, enjoy those experiences of digital nomadship, right?
definitely.
But in the gig economy, how does one get paid? How are the currencies designed? So he designed a very interesting crypto-based system with tokens called the gig e-coins, and airdropping certain gig e-coins in certain geographies, so that and only in geographies where there is a high output of digital nomads, people
Hmm.
staying more digital in those countries. um, and so then how do these digital nomads get paid? Through gigi coins, and then these coins, how do they exchange it? Literally, not for cash but for services. For example, if I'm staying in Bali, I go to Hubud, which is a co-working space. I want to
Hmm.
spend 7 days in that co-working space, and I have these coins. Can this co-working space Hubud accept these gig coins, and I can use their services for a week? And so this is the ecosystem which is evolving. So definitely you have to think where you can make a difference, and then start building on that particular area. The field is humongous, unlimited. It is left to your imagination, I would say.
Right. Now let's take a couple of rapid fire questions, really
Sure,
rapid fire. So
sure.
you have 1 minute to answer every question. So,
Okay.
first one, what do you think about first getting an experience in the corporate world and then go to build our own startup?
I would just say antennas. If you have a financial backing and you want to make an impact, for example, if your parents are well off and they're able to support you, they're very open and they understand what the startup world means. Go for it. And but you have a clear objective on defining what your startup would do, and then they'll support you for a couple of years. Even if you fail, then you can take a corporate job open. If you really need a experience, a corporate experience, and there is a very interesting company on campus who's gonna give you a good deal, um, you set up a mandate for yourself. You still want to enter the startup world, but really after 2 years, and you really put a full stop after 2 years to the corporate career and get into a startup because you would have saved money to get into the startup world if you ever wish to. But
Great.
I would say both the sides, like if you're financially well, for
Go
example,
for the
like
start.
if you've been a YouTuber and have a few million followers and have been making some money, go for it. Then you already are
Mm.
into the startup career, and or if you have financial backing, parents are able to support, go for it as well. And the third aspect is determine what your long term objectives are as a student,
Mhm.
whether you want to stay corporate or really make an impact in this world. It's really up to your thinking. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Next up, how not to be so how so we have intense competition in the industry with each passing day. How do we manage so that we are not affected by that intense competition and are forced to close shop?
Competition is everywhere. So there are startups who have turned competition into great strategic partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
They have created, look at some of the very successful startups like the Microsoft. They were startups earlier, now they are fortune companies. But look at their business model. Their business model is they build connectors, they build tools. Look at HubSpot CRM, they build tools with Microsoft. Apple worked very closely together with Microsoft, they build with Mac. So literally work competition to your advantage,
Right.
right? That's the strategy going forward. Collaboration is key. Open yourselves to the whole wide world. No idea is secretive. Don't keep your
Mm-hmm.
ideas secretive. Discuss with as many people as possible, because everyone will have a different perspective. That will give you great insight, both on the competition, on actually expanding your total addressable market as well. And then those competitive fears will vanish automatically, because you will be turn competition into confidence. I would just end this with turn competition into confidence to make your startup a success. That's how I would like to wrap it.
Words of gold. And with this, I think it is time to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Mr. Samir Sotur, for being here with us, for explaining to us and really giving us that zeal that we need to get on the entrepreneurial road. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Tamid group for organizing such a great session. Thank you to Ms. Meghna for helping us coordinate with Mr. Samir. Thank you, Arun, and thank you all the members that are here, and thank you all the members of the audience for your attention and your great questions. Now, we hope that we can have another such session with Mr. Sotur in the near future and extend our collaboration with you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Mr. Sotur. Do you have any words to close this?
Yeah, I would like to definitely thank Meghna and her team. SP Jain has been closely collaborating with us for a long time now, and bringing and working with different initiatives through us. So I'd like to thank you as well. Also, there is the cultural aspect is very open at SPJN. So fantastic university if you are planning to have a career as a student and grow your student life through SPJN. Very good open platform. Um, I would say that create your own opportunities,
Right.
right? Don't wait for the world to kind of define you, but you define and you create your own opportunities, and you make success of what you create. The definition of success depends on each individual and even the world around you. So, for some, success would purely mean monetary success, that I have become, my startup has become a unicorn and has been acquired by this player. For them, it could be success, a commercial success, and a
Mm-hmm.
satisfaction that they built something unique for the planet, that they reduce carbon emissions and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some, success would be purely an impact. And this is one of the things why I love to get involved with impact projects, that impact will give you long term satisfaction, while as commercial monetary satisfaction is very short term. And you will see most of the commercial success eventually goes into creating an impact, that most of the uh, take for example Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right?
Right.
Microsoft created such a fantastic story as a great company. A lot of that is actually coming back into creating social impact, right? So
Right.
so while in the short term you will definitely create an economic impact for yourself and the people around you and your team, but
Mm-hmm.
long term, imagine there is no other satisfaction than creating an impact for the society you live in, and make it a better and a happier place to live in. With that,
Right.
I really thank you for the session, and I'm happy to collaborate another time to kind of come on and help motivate the youth.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samir Sotur. And with this, thank you very much for such a session, guys. Your questions were awesome. So sorry that we couldn't take more, but you have to understand he's a busy man, he has business to attend to, and we have to study as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Soto. We'll definitely keep in touch. And I thank you
Absolutely.
from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of SPJN, School of Global Management, and the Tamit Group.